so they certainly have deep pockets, and that investment can be made with a great deal of political calculation. So.
We have time for one more after that. I've already got him selected.
I'm Jonathan Pollack at Brookings Institution. The topic is the significance of Wen Jiabao's visit to China. And I believe that the strategic and political significance is more important than economic cooperation. So, John, you said that the government-to-government cooperation is just looking like a failing out. But I don't think it is. It is rather a dangling dinner menu for North Korea, which is very much different from your suggestion. Rather, North Korea and China said that under any circumstances, we are going to continue to cooperate. That's the key message that KEI and China want to signal out. In terms of the natural resources, you said that Musan Island ore mine. However, in 2005, South Korean government wanted to cooperate in mining and natural resources, but it was almost impossible because there's no electricity, there's no road, there's no means of transportation. Therefore, the contract on natural resources is more like a long-term preemptive right to explore in the future. So the effects in the immediate sense is relatively remote. Therefore, I think that economic cooperation is more important. But much more than that, I think political and strategic consensus has been built up. That's the most important signs that Wen Jiabao's visit should make.
I think you've raised some very, very relevant considerations. The question is, if there is a strategic understanding, what is the basis of that understanding? What is it that North Korea does not like its fate tethered to anyone if they could possibly avoid it? Unfortunately, circumstances from a North Korean perspective often don't allow for that. So the question is, if there are strategic understandings, is China offering a different means by which, let's take the nuclear issue, would be contained, if you will? I don't mean containment in the formal sense that we often use that concept, but that you limit the possibilities here. And to what extent is that something that North Korean leaders would be amenable to committing themselves to? One other aspect in all of this that we really haven't alluded to today is obviously the succession. Now, we can speculate endlessly about what will happen, but it may well be that the bet that China is making is that establish the parameters now, that they exist at least at a conceptual level, and then you see what happens when the time comes. I think it would be reasonable to assume, in fact more than reasonable, it is a fact, there will have to be a generational transition. One only need look at the picture of those who assembled for the occasion. I mean, Kim Jong-il may be more ceremonial now, but he's not going to live forever. That's just one example. A lot of aged generals that are there, they're not going to live forever. What kind of a transition is made there? What are the loyalties of these individuals? What kind of a structure of authority is there? Can the extant kind of structure that we associate with the North Korea that we deal with or perceive, is that sustainable over the longer term? I don't think any of us can answer those questions, but it may well be that through these understandings and the potential of longer-term economic ties, that the Chinese will be better positioned in that area than anyone else.
I think I would just reemphasize that when we try to avoid incorporating, the Chinese have mapped out, they know exactly which state trading company is affiliated to which center of power. So certain prepaid units have money that is coming from Chinese sources by way of preferential terms and so forth. It's not just outright grants. I think in many cases it's a preferential trading arrangement of sorts. And this isn't to say that China is doing either or. I think they're doing everything at the same time. They're going to push hard on six-party talks. They're going to push hard on militarization. They're going to work very closely with the U.S. in that channel. But the point that I wanted to emphasize is that specifically not only the Communist Party of China, but the Communist Party of China International Department and the Workers' Party of Korea, that relationship is very important. And that's a channel that even in China, many analysts don't have access to. So we shouldn't be surprised by these type of activities happening at the highest levels. But the strategic implications of all this, we have to realize that China is really in a position to carry out these things in a long strategic vision because they have the ability to plan these things out in other countries do.
Last one goes to Steve Costello.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. A question and a comment. First of all, I wonder what are the numbers that we have, the best numbers we have today about the size of these new Chinese North Korean agreements, the amount of investment at the time. The comment follows very closely on what John Parker said. I thought the third portion of this presentation was particularly good in the sense that it really brings up this question of different time horizons that we're working on. The Chinese and North Koreans on the one hand, the Japanese, South Koreans, and U.S. on the other. In many ways, this could be at the heart of some of our failures to meet up with them. And the Chinese could very easily be watching, as Jonathan Pollack noted, Kim Jong-il must have been very disappointed that he misread Obama's rhetoric so much. Well, the Chinese probably misread his rhetoric, as did pro-engagement forces all over the world. The current engagement now, as we've heard from several other speakers, might be China's way of having decided that, well, you're not going to get a really active U.S. North Korea China for a while, and we may as well pursue our long-term strategic economic interests. And I just follow up with having spoken to a rather senior North Korean defector 2 years ago, and I asked him this question about, doesn't the North worry a bit about all this Chinese investment up the North? And he sort of smiled and he suggested that the North Koreans were having their way with the Chinese merchants and that, they were unlikely to have much impact beyond economics. But any sense of the numbers we have and how big these investments are?
Quick point there, the estimates of the size are, they range quite a lot. It depends on, for example, the Busan mine deal. Are you going to use an international price for the iron ore produced? The defectors know that the Chinese get top dollar. And so the idea for the Chinese side is this is a great way to increase trust. The North Koreans, when it comes to these large deals, don't complain about being fleeced. They're concerned about the control aspect. And the arguments that you hear from China, the North Koreans in these kind of instances, it sounds very similar to how the other end of a Chinese natural resource deal in Africa or South America is what we really talk. They don't complain about the money they get from the Chinese. It's just the fact that it's all Chinese. But the other part of all that is that, and granted, the caveat is this defector information, but again, the defectors who work in state trading companies are aware of these type of structures. Not only is it the amount of money, but it's how it's paid. In the Busan mine deal, defectors know that there's a lump sum payment up front to the North Koreans. That is the biggest way to show confidence that they see future relationship. If they thought you were going to cross right away, then they basically say, okay, payout is going to happen in year 15. And that sounds a lot like similar types of agreements where you're betting on the North Koreans to collapse. But these types of activities, there are a lot of negatives, but the positive of the structure is the Chinese recognize this is a very valuable way to engage the North Koreans.
Okay, with that, let me let the three JPs up here thank you, the audience, for coming to participate. This has been an extraordinarily timely. I want to thank again USIP for coming up with the idea. I appreciate the staff for helping put it together. And again, I hope that you enjoyed it. I have found it extraordinarily enlightening. I appreciate both John being here for his contribution. Thank you.